What's up, Bears fans? I'm Harrison Graham with another episode of Chicago Bears Now. Breaking news edition. The Bears have informed Gerald Everett that he is getting cut. He tweeted out about it, so that is a done deal. I got a lot of thoughts, reaction, and then we'll kind of explore what moves could be coming next as the next couple of weeks are going to be picking up. Kind of feels like this is the first domino for the Chicago Bears this offseason and beyond all the coaching stuff, obviously. Before we get into all that, hit that subscribe button here on Bears Now by Chat Sports. We have daily content. We're talking the latest Bears news like this, breaking news situations, rumors, NFL free agency, draft, the combine next week. We got a lot of content coming out of Indianapolis your way as well, as Chat Sports will have boots on the ground. Support the movement, daily content here at Bears Now. All you got to do is subscribe. Okay, Gerald Everett cut. Pretty obvious move. We talked about this on numerous videos. A cut candidates video, we talked about it on another video we did last week where the Bears can do different things to create more cap space. And cutting Gerald Everett is like the easiest thing they could do to create money. $5.5 million, only a dead cap penalty of $1 million. Now they're up to over $74 million in projected cap. Pretty easy decision. I liked the signing last offseason. I thought he would be a clear upgrade over Robert Tonyan as kind of the number 2 guy behind Cole Kmet, because over about a 5-year period coming into last year, he had averaged around 400 yards and like 4 touchdowns. Really good receiving tight end. And last year he had 6 catches for 38 yards. They tried to use him as a blocker. That's not a strength of his. It was just a mess. I think it was a combination of they didn't know how they wanted to use him. He was a little diminished. He was a Waldron guy, so once Waldron hit the road, then he was really kind of out of sorts. It just, sometimes these things don't work out, right? Sometimes the signing looks good. It's like, oh, 2 years, $12 million, Gerald Everett. I like that move. And then you see it play out, and it just hasn't worked out. And it's kind of been a theme at the tight end position behind Kmet. They have just not found a complementary weapon, especially as a receiving tight end behind Cole. They tried it with Tonyan the year before, did not work out. They tried it with Gerald Everett, has not worked out. Cole Kmet's been good. Marcedes Lewis is a number 3 blocker, has been fine, although last year he wasn't as good. But they still are searching for quality depth and, quite frankly, production from that tight end position, and Gerald Everett just did not provide it. So pretty easy decision there on that one. I think he was like my number 1 cut, because unless Ben Johnson came in and felt like he could get a lot of value out of him, I mean, almost $6 million. Like you can find a starter with that, or a couple of good backups. So depending on the position. So Gerald Everett is out. No surprises there whatsoever. Now, when you start shifting to what could be coming next for this football team, you're up to $74.5 million in projected cap space. Remember earlier this week, the NFL dropped the projected cap range, $277.5 to $281.5. That was higher than teams were expecting. Teams were operating under a pretense that $272 to $275 would be the range, but it's going to come in higher than that, so that's good news. Now they're up to $74+ million with cutting Gerald Everett. And now what could be next down the pike? Okay. How about some other cuts? Is a guy like Ryan Bates going to be cut? That would save them $4 more million. We'll see if the Bears still value him as a potential depth piece moving forward. I would make that cut, and then if you want to bring him back for like the vet minimum as a backup interior guy, that's fine. But to me, Ryan Bates is not a starter. I think that's a move you can make next. And then there's 2 guys that I want to explore here as potential cut candidates. Do you keep or cut him? Let's first talk about DeMarcus Walker. He has a $5.9 million cap hit for this upcoming season. Honestly, not that bad. And for what he brings to the table, I don't think he's a starter, even though he's been that his first 2 years here. But I think he's like a perfect number 5, number 6 defensive lineman, because he can play multiple spots. He can play on the edge. He can play on the inside, especially on obvious passing downs. I would probably keep him, even though if you cut him, you save $5.3 million. So let's say you do cut him. Well, you're up to about $79, $80 million in cap space. And then there's Kevin Byard. If you cut Kevin Byard, his current cap hit is $8.5 million. If you cut him, it's a $7 million in savings. It's a lot of money. But given the uncertainty around Jaquan Brisker, can you really afford to cut Kevin Byard? it's kind of similar with Walker. You could probably afford to cut him, but then you're pretty thin at edge. I mean, do you think Austin Booker's taking a big step, or are you prepared to throw some money at a Josh Sweat in free agency? Do they feel good about maybe bringing Khalil Mack here? If you cut a guy, you have to feel good about that position group moving forward, or you just don't think that player can play anymore. Like Gerald Everett is kind of like, he didn't even have 40 yards last year. Even if you don't have an obvious plan right away at your backup tight end spot, Everett gave you nothing, so a $6 million cap hit just wasn't worth it. But DeMarcus Walker, good rotation player. Kevin Byard, still a starting caliber safety. I don't think you just look at that and you're like, yeah, let's cut him and save, a combined $12 million. Like, yeah, that's great. But then you're creating holes, especially with Byard. Then you have to go get a starting safety. Are you getting a starting safety that is clearly better than Kevin Byard for $7 million or less? Maybe, or maybe you draft one, which would be cheaper, but also maybe not. And even if you do, you don't know what you're going to get out of Brisker, who missed the final 12 games last year. So I think you have to keep Kevin Byard. Walker, you could justify making that cut, but then your depth takes a significant hit along your defensive line. I'm probably keeping both of those players. You already have $74 million in cap. You can restructure contracts, which is something else we talked about. We can revisit here. Guys like DJ Moore, guys like Montez Sweat, Jalen Johnson, all those guys can be restructured, which creates a lot of money in cap space. It kicks some money down the road, but if you want to have more money right now, you could certainly do that. You could also just kind of hang out with what you currently have. To me, I'm cutting Ryan Bates, and I'm entering free agency with that $78 million, and if I need to create more space later, I'm restructuring one of those big contracts to free up more space. Like, say the Bears get in the mix for a big-time trade target, and they feel like they need more cash up front. Okay, I'll restructure DJ Moore or Jalen Johnson or Montez Sweat, a player I feel confident that will be on this roster next year as well. So we'll see where it goes from here. I will say this, the idea that Cole Kmet, I didn't even entertain this on a video, that he could be a salary cap cut, then you have no tight ends. Guys, Cole Kmet's a good player. Ben Johnson's going to have a plan for him. His cap hit is $11 million. Like, that's not that much money. Gerald Everett's cap hit of $6.5 million when he did literally nothing last year, that's an easy cut. You're not cutting your starting tight end, who's your best blocking and best receiving tight end, and who was grossly underused last year and still had almost 500 yards. Like, that's just not something that was going to happen. It's definitely not going to happen now, because you literally have 0 tight ends on your roster, because Mercedes Lewis is also a free agent. So he's going to be here. There's no question about that. As far as Gerald Everett goes, wish him well. Not sure why it didn't work. I don't know if he's a diminished product. I don't know if the Bears just grossly misused him. It's probably a combination of things. That's typically what happens when these players switch teams and it doesn't work out. And listen, that's the reality of free agency sometimes, especially with like role player types. Like Trey Smith, I'm not worried about him not working out. Could he be slightly worse than what he's been with the Chiefs? Probably, but I think he's a high enough level player that he'll be good just about anywhere. Gerald Everett, you probably have to have a vision for him. And the Bears didn't have a vision for much of anything last year offensively. So best of luck to him. Bears save $5.5 million. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. We will continue to bring you guys content as news, rumors about to pick up. Combine next week. That's when, these big, these agents, these teams, they start to kind of have these preliminary discussions, and these big wig reporters like the Rappaports and Schefters of the world, they start to leak storylines out there about where these players could end up. So we'll have all that covered as well. Hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications so you don't miss any of it here on Chicago Bears Now.